Alright guys, so once again we start with the melody of the song, right? You all heard what that was all about, so just a quick thing. Alright, so now we're good to go. So this is just quarters, as you see, right? And then I just added, that's what I said before, added some little humpy steps in between. So before, like in the original version, I had this thing quantized to 8th, you know, just had it here, and it sounds like this, you know, like really boring and even. So I put this to the right, just a tad. I didn't apply any triplet or anything, you know, it just stayed as it is, snap to grid, just in between these 16ths there. And as you can hear, it's always the same memory, the same motive repeating itself, because the idea was, like I did in other tracks as well, I have an underlaying string sound also with Serum that actually takes this motive to different meanings, let's say, like yeah, melodically, goes through phases of different moods, so to speak, and so this whole thing makes sense, you know, instead of just repeating itself all over again, you know. All right, let's just take a quick look at how this sound is done. So it's basically the two oscillators on. Okay, there's a lot of detune going on here with the unison. I used 10 voices for this. And there's also a quick envelope. I'm always using, some of you know already, the LFO, the LFOs instead of the envelopes, because there's so much more versatile. You can do so many more things, add so many more points, and it's just super accurate and fun. And yeah, so basically this thing is just, yeah, automizing the depth of the unison detune. It gives us a rich, stringy, but also leady sound a little bit, you know. And hello detune, yeah, exactly. That's what this is. On top of that, as you can see, the randomize for the phases on and both things, as we're in a pad sound that should actually be treated a little bit looser than bass sounds and or drum sounds, which actually have to sound the same every time, other than I decide I want them to sound differently every time. Yeah, just a simple sawtooth here on top, which is slightly no, it's actually the sub that is actually FM controlling, FM modulating the oscillator A here. And now we get to the usage of the sub, why this is in there. And I just find out there is no usage of the sub because it's in a different patch. Actually, it's not in this patch. It is in the string sounds. So we'll get to the string sounds right now. What happens here in the end towards the breakdown is there's a delay on a return track, so that gets turned up heavily. So it just gets switched on at 33, and then there's an automation for the feedback here that goes up to full. So that is one thing. The feedback goes up and just to full, and what happens with the oscillators here is as you can see, there is an automation for these semitones of this sawtooth here. So it diverges increasingly from the from its original tune, and that, yeah, that results in a in a constant detune, but it's just like a step detune. It's not like taking it up like a pitch or something. So it's just let me see where this is, like the semitones here. So it's a linear curve, but the grid of the semitones is just, it's the semitones, and it's staying semitones. So with every yeah, it seems this way, it seems more randomly going up, you know. So there's no fine line that actually takes it from A to Z. It just transcends, it goes through the semitones here, and that's what's happening here, as you can hear. We switch this off, then you can clearly hear it. Oh yeah, for all of those who don't know, I mean, all of them know probably, but this is from my recent Blackout EP, tune Operator, and yeah, that's what I forgot to say earlier on. Yeah, so that's how I create some tension towards bar 49, where the tune actually drops. And yeah, let's get into the strings. Maybe someone has a question regarding the creation of the sound, or anything that goes on with this melody here with a lead sound. Let's call it lead sound. Well, I'll keep the conversation here. I'll keep looking at it, and I'll just continue with the string sounds now. Okay, let's just solo these for now. These are just pretty common chords, actually, for... okay, so what's going on? Just a minute. Alright, it's too quiet, so I should turn up the... Yeah, let me turn up the door just a little bit, but not that much, to be honest, because we had it fixed yesterday. Okay. Alright. Okie dokie, so let's go on where we stopped. That was the pads. Okay. Alright, I've done that. Okay. So what do we have here? We have a string pad, more or less. So this is like a minor chord. It's E minor with added 2 and 10. Talking about the semitones, which are added here. And as you can hear in the actual sound itself, there's already a quint built in, so to speak. So I've got oscillator A, simple, slightly detuned and low pass filtered sawtooth, and there's a second added that actually adds a quint on top of that. So we already have, let's say, complicated the sound a little bit more. And if you, let me just play the chord as it is without the quint, sounds like this. Quite complex, but now we add the quint in every of these keys. It makes it even more complicated now. As you can see, the level of the second operator is turned down. So just to clarify, I think it's better if someone has questions throughout this thing, should ask the questions in the chat, and then we'll go in the second half of the masterclass, or towards the end somewhere, 40 minutes left or something. I take some time, or 30 minutes left, I don't know. It depends on how many questions there are. I go into some of these questions and answer them. Don't forget to visit DNB Academy for my Ableton and FL course there for maybe even a bit more in-depth sound design and some things that aren't covered here, or possibly not covered. Okay, so where did we start? Okay, so we've got this quint playing here. Both of them are slightly detuned, much less than the lead sound. Okay. Okay, we get to the ARP sound in a bit. So this is going through some, so the main differences are actually that the underlying tone here, like the bass note, is actually changing the whole chord structure around. As you can see, the upper part stays always the same, and the lower part keeps wandering, like that's like the main tune E, and then it goes into C, and then back to E, and then it just goes through some chord functions that actually had this thing build a little cycle, if you want. And the cycle starts here and ends here after 8 bars. And then there's a second cycle. Similar, but yet a little different. This time we descend from C and then go to the second 2 semitones up. Yeah, and that's mainly what it is. Just have these simple quarters playing and adding the little this little dancey element to it, yeah, but not even, just have it a little bit delayed, using the actual 4/4 grid. And okay, so what else? Yeah, and the third element here is an ARP. So we just copied the content, like the notes from the pads, and just put it into a next line. Just copy this down, duplicate, and then change the string sound a little bit. You know, have the same elements here, but this time you see like it's an octave up for the first, for oscillator A, and oscillator B this time is not the quint, it's just as it is, 0 octaved and no semitones changed. The detune again up a little bit, so it changed to being higher than the actual string sound that we used. You can keep in mind, you know, if you have like this mellow element here consisting of the lead sound, a pad sound, and an ARP sound. So the more you vary in the detune, the more complex the whole audio thing becomes. You know, so this is maybe something that might be interesting to know. Randomizer's full up again, so we're dealing in ARPs, pads, and lead sounds. So I have absolutely no problem in just having this wander around here, and to avoid flanging effects as well, especially if you use detune. Some of you have probably experienced it a couple of times as well, that if you have the detune up and change this thing to non-movable phase position, yes, then you get a flange effect, especially on toothy and squarey waveforms. So we don't want that, so it stays up. Could be here or here, but I'll keep it fully up. That's default. All of these sounds are slightly low pass filtered, cut off somewhere in the midst. I wouldn't even specify it even more, because bottom right of the screen. So I just heard there's an issue with the bottom right of the screen. So the camera So how do we do this thing? Okay, let's switch it to here. Okay, right, so now the camera should be on the right side. I just wanted to cover some of the important stuff that I'm doing here with Ableton. That's why I had it on the left side. Anyway, okay, back to our thing here. So we've got these three elements now. We've got, oh yeah, the lead sound, the pad sound, and this is just a simple ARP sound. So what I did here, I have an up style, so it just plays the notes from lowest to highest on the actual chords, of course. That's how the ARP works. So if we keep playing this on its own, so it just goes through all these notes, puts them up in a cycle of, what's that? That's 1/64th. So all these notes take, you hear the cycling, and the cycling is a bit off timing, which is actually intended. And as I can see, it's steps 2, so it's actually 2 octaves. Or even 3, no, it's 3 octaves as a whole. So it takes it from very low to very high and goes through all these things using a 64th grid. And yeah, it's a wonderful little ARP, so there's nothing much to explain really, other than people have never seen an ARP. Something else. Okay, what else? Sawtooths, a little more detune, quite filtered down, quite harshly filtered down actually, just underlying. Okay, so that's more or less it. Okay, I think I might have changed something here, so let's just boot up the original thing again. It keeps happening, you know, you just show things and then end up on in a different spot. And we've got a serious program error. Very nice. Alright. So just a moment. Booting up Ableton again. Doesn't even ask me if it wants to recover the session. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Reloading the song. And for the people asking, it will be kept online, so this will be recorded and will be available, I suppose. Well, at least I think it will be available. Definitely be recorded. Okay, so back to our mellow sound. So just play this from the beginning. Okay, and the change here. And here, 33, bar 33 is actually where there's change happening. There's some volume automated sine chord sound coming in, as you can hear. And this is part of the string pad actually. And what happens here is I'm just switching on. Let's show this here. Okay, I'm just switching on. Actually, I switch it on at bar 17 already. Okay, listen here. Switched on, but it's still low in levels. Yeah, exactly. So the level gets taken up at some point, I suppose. The mod amount. Okay, so what happens here? Alright, so we've got a triangle sub that is being switched on at bar 17, and then the modulation of the sub is increasing. This is controlled by LFO number 2, with a triplet quarter. So that's what you hear, the v, that's triplet quarter. And what happens here is just additionally to the oscillator A with this, with the sawtooth and the quint playing at the same time, this sub oscillator is brought up. So if you want, maybe I can emulate this. No, it has to be switched on. So that's what's happening. See, and that's done via this LFO, and the amount is being taken up. Just have to press the bar. You see, it's like switched on here, so you can hardly hear it. And sorry, I have to take down the sidechaining for now. Makes it easier to understand. See, and there's the point where you slightly hear it coming in. And there, the modulation range is full up, so it means you hear the triplet quarter sine, not sine wave, it shows like a triangle. It's a bit siney, but it has more overtones. Okay, right. So that was one element I wanted to show. So there's no apparent reason why the sub oscillator's on, because it's just turned down, so you should probably just switch it off and still have exactly what we need for the song. There's no difference. I think the next thing we'll do is the drums. Right. But I'm reading sidechain there, the YouTube. Alright. Automation on the fan. Yeah, that's a very good comment. There is an automation curve for the fan, especially. Okay. Now, but back to the song. So I'm going to go through the drums now. Just solo them for now. So these drums are, let's just keep the sidechain thing off for now, or at least, yeah, store it away. Okay, so what is this here? This is an instrument rack consisting of 4 serum instances, that each of these represent one drum sound. So there's the hi-hat, this is the clap snare, it's not even a clap, or not even a snare, but it's something in between, and this is the kick. Okay, just briefly, because I think we needed a bit more time to really go into these things a bit more thoroughly. Just got the time. Okay, we're good timing wise. So what this is just an envelope that controls the amp of a sine wave, basically, and this sine wave is pitched down via this multiple phase, like two stage pitch envelope, one quick stage and a slower stage. This is for the initial kick, the click, more or less, and this is for the actual drum part of the sound, the chest hitter. I'll call it as you want. Just in the end, you need to find the right tone, this would be much too high. I wouldn't say there's much tuning in this kick drum. I mean, there is tuned kick drums for sure, but in this one, I think it's masked by the reverbs. It decides 2 reverbs actually on these. One's for the highs for the click, and one for the low end, very short. I mean, not very, but quite short reverbs that are actually gated in the end as well, because it's very important to to not have them bleed out for too long, for obvious sidechain reasons. If you're using the actual signal for sidechaining. That's also another thing that we can actually get into a little bit later, but for now it's yeah, just a synthesis of these drums. So what else is happening here? In this case, the pitch envelope is attached to the octave. Interesting, I never did this in the last couple of months, but this time obviously I used it for the octave, and you can, in the upper regions, you can actually hear that it's not transcending. It's not a clear pitch, it's going through octaves actually. It's not a problem, it's just a matter of if it fits or not for this sound, for this kind of drum sound. What else? So then we've got, yeah, this is octave. Then we've got LFO for the envelope, for the amp envelope. Then we have a velocity. This is a velocity enabled sound. So it means, let's just quickly go into this grid here. As you can hear, like, hit it on the left side, lower velocity and higher velocity is cranking up. The volume is opening up the filter, and yeah, that's it. So it's assigned to level and cutoff. More detail, visit the courses in DNB Academy that I have there. But it's just, yeah, it's logical that you might need some velocity dependency yeah, for various ghost kicks, or yeah, any of that stuff might be interesting. Okay, so that's very briefly the kick, and we've got this clappy sound. It's a little more interesting now. It's a little more involved there. So what do we have here? We have a mixture between square and saw for the bass note, which is a bit uncommon. Normally I use sine or even triangle. Well, it's probably more sine to really get the kick part, like the bass part of any drum sound, or any snare sound as well. Keep that going. And this time I used something with a little bit more overtones. So let's just switch off the noises, and you can hear it is much fishier than any sine would actually be. Okay, we're back. All right. So with audio, everything. So yes. Voice is back. All good. Okay, so we had a little crash on OBS. No problem. So where were we? So I think I've explained the kick sound, and now we're on to the next drum sounds. It's going to be this clap snare. And other than unusual snare sounds, I'm using something between square and sawtooth. We have again the octave pitch envelope, which is unusual for me, but yeah, that's what I used for this song. Sounds something like this. It's much more overtones, sounds much noisier as well. And on top of this, which actually makes it the clap sound, is something that swings in and then just has a couple of peaks over quite a short, this is 40 hertz almost, so it's a very fast, yeah, going up and down of the volume of this stereo white noise, and quite a long tail as well this time. So this making space for the transient actually is very important here. This goes for snares, goes for claps as well, sometimes clap snares maybe. And it also goes for kicks, because even kicks can have noise sounds on top of them, and if you have the noise part exactly where the actual transient is, like the main noise part, I'm not talking about the click in the beginning, there can be noise, which is also appreciated actually, but in this case we want a clear, distinct time difference between the kick element of the drum sound and the noise part of the drum sound. So that's why the space making element has to be there. Makes a huge difference. So if someone goes here, I hear a lot of people saying, okay, it has to be impactful, so do as much impact in the front and then just, but it's not true. It has to develop. Every drum sound has to run through a timing or schedule, so to speak. Alright, so are we back on? We are still on. Very good. Fan is really loud. Yeah, I can't do anything about the fan. I'm really sorry about this. I have to probably use another computer next time. On to the next. So let's... Okay, so this is just every 2 quarters I've got this hi-hat sound, which consists of a very soft enveloped noise. There's no oscillators here, there's just the noise oscillator, no A and B I mean. And what is all this here? So there was something before, but I switched it off, so I'm just using the noise, which is just that. And the interesting thing is, this hi-hat is originally something like this. Like a shaker, and then double speed. Got like off heads and main heads, and then so I'm actually using this, not sure if I use it in this song, but to actually have different tempos of hi-hat lines by just using an envelope that I play in different timing rates, and it's just more fun, why have everything smeared into your MIDI when you can have this handy at your synth that you're using with a simple envelope like this, and you can do all kinds of awkward rhythms with this thing, just delay the things slightly, making space for any transients, and just have the hi-hat be dragged instead of on top of everything, and then having a delay put to it, which is, everyone has his way to work, but I love just to drop the finger on the keyboard and then just have the whole sound playing. In this case it's just a quarter filled with hi-hat events, and this could be triplet, so just to show you how easy this would be. So you just, instead of having these 4 things, you have 3 evenly spread out, and then you have instead of going quarters and 16ths or 8ths and offs. So that's basically it, really. There's nothing more going on here. The only drum element that gets added later are the rides. And interesting thing is, if I switch off this mute automation here, we have something like this. Again, huge sidechaining from the bass. Actually, the bass frequency gets this dirty distortion-like sound on the hi-hat. Very short timings, and of course you've got the longer gain reduction parts coming from the drums. But then I decided, this was the initial line. Then I decided to go, okay, well, let's just have it in some places, just switch it on and off. I literally just switched on and off in different spaces, and I thought, oh, that's much cooler. so we have to take the mutes off here. How's that done? There's the stupid one. Why is this? That's interesting. Quick blackout. So what's this? Why is this? Reload. No, the thing is, sometimes you have a line in there, and yeah, you just decide to mute it. Actually, there's more mute in this ride line than playing the line, which is yeah, makes this a little. Well, I could have sampled it down, you know, resampled it. So it's really just, you know. Timing is all good. Well, that's nice. That's good news. So yeah, just these rides. I believe these are sample pack rides from Ableton. I'm not sure which ones. Oh yeah, there it goes. Yeah, you'll find these in the standard pack. I never dig too much for sound sources if I use samples, if I ever do it. I mean, sometimes, most of the time, I'm using Serum to make drum sounds, to make ride sound as well, or cymbals. But this time I thought, oh, let's go for some clangier real drum stuff, and this is what I came up with: Ride Acoustic Ocean and Ride Acoustic Yaki Man. Yeah, then these mutes, which makes this a different line than the initial one. And there we go with our drums. I have an EQ on the drums. A very, very nice EQ. I love this thing. From the classic SSL console, they offered these for free at some point with Reason. If you own Reason 11, I would really recommend these EQs. They're quite brutal, but they're quite good as well. Just as, you know, you can just do an A/B switch. Let's switch these off. Okay, it's just a touch, but still, that little bit. And how much is it? 2.5 dB. Quite high Q as well, and really up high. Adds that little bit of air needed. A little bit of more energy, and I find this EQ is doing a very good job. Okay, these are pretty much the drums. Maybe not in full, but still detailed enough to actually give you an idea of how this is done in the song. I think we should go to the bass now. Okay, so let's just solo bass. Okay, the last thing we'll do is the sidechain thing, because I think this is something that I should explain separately, because it's just too much all at once. Okay, so this main bass here, what is this? Serum, condensed highs, using the multiband compressor, highest band, bring everything under this threshold up, and also with very short release. Just the attack time stays at 5 milliseconds, but the release is even shorter than the attack, resulting in, you know, if I switch it off, you get an idea of how much gain recovery there is really underneath. All this high-end dirt gets pushed up to, what is this? Oh, this is, yeah, minus 21 dB. Everything below that gets highly pushed up with very fast timings, and this results in this, yeah, super gritty sound. It's already gritty, but it's nothing in comparison to that. Okay, since this is just a one note element here, I have no problem in putting an EQ behind it. since the pitch is not changing. If I had the pitch changing up, like 3 semitones or 4 semitones or anything, like just playing a melody, then I would run into problems using a static EQ, not a dynamic EQ, you know, because I just wanted to give these overtones around 100 Hertz, just shy of 100 Hertz, a bit more prominence, to increase them, to make the sound more stable. So this EQ is no problem, since this is only playing E all the time. And without the Q, huge difference. It's much beefier this way. And it's also good that Ableton has all these graphic elements here that you can actually see what you're doing, which overtones you actually touch or miss or bring down, bring up, do whatever. Okay, there's also a pitch thing that's not used anymore, but still in the song, no problem. Okay, let's go into the actual preset. So I've got this dist 8-bit FWEP, which is one of my favorite Serum wavetable presets, because it's gritty, but it still remains quite clear, having something siny, triangle-y underneath, and then like a noise added on top, and also when it walks through these different deformations of the wavetable, it really offers a lot of overtones and grit that in the end could be brought up with these sort of techniques. Or you could as well add an overdrive based on the higher frequency, you know. I mean, you get you the same, or not the same, but similar thing going in the end. Right, and on top of this, well, this is actually FM modulated from B. B is taken down as only modulating this, but as you've seen now, there is an automation on the actual level as well. Just find the right LFO. So LFO 6 is controlling the level of this thing. You switch it off, you don't have the overtone. The overtone is really made of the second oscillator. There's no resonance, there's no FM input that does it. It is really a triangle waveform, free of octaves and a quint up. That actually makes the sound. So if I change the quint here, you know, then you actually it's pretty much jump up here, so that you really have oscillators playing a tone instead of just being a result of a modulation, which is normally the case with Neuro basses. It's not so common that someone adds a tone, really. I mean, at least not for the Neuro basses I've looked into or done or produced, and this time it's different. Then this whole thing, both oscillators actually go through a reverb filter. A reverb filter is a very interesting thing. It actually creates a lot of gaps, a lot of ups and downs here, which actually derail the whole waveform to a point where you get so many overtones. It's really interesting, so you really have to be careful where you put this thing, because if you put it at the wrong spot, you might have a hole right where the bass is, and as you can see, okay, the sub is not going through this thing because it's just too dangerous. It takes the sub away, or just adds it to the sub, or starts resonating, you know, and we don't want that. So the sub needs to be controlled. That's why it's not taken into the filter. Okay, just a quick one. Just need to. Okay, so we've got 1 hour down. My goodness, this is nothing. Anyway. Well, okay, reverb filter and tone making oscillator B, sine as the sub oscillator. Then we have a little bit of sine fold distortion here, which is also controlled by the same envelope that controls oscillator B amp. What else? A little bit of I increased the mid frequencies a little bit using the EQ here, but other than that there's nothing going on the FX. So let's see. But as you can hear, the sound starts with almost like a kick. As you can hear, it's very kicky, and one of these envelopes, it's envelope number 7, actually adds a pitch envelope. We take this slower, that you can hear. See, that's almost like it's like a kick, you know. So you have a really strong impact of the whole sound due to this pitch envelope I'm using. Okay, there were different envelopes here before, because I tried some other stuff out with the bass that are not used anymore. So it's really just because it's just played for not even a whole bar, you know. So it just stops here. So some of these modulations are irrelevant as of now. And this is interesting, because this actually takes the last little bit of the sound into some overtone disaster, which is done via the FM from B. So if I do it manually, it just takes it even more up, you know. So there could be like a VIP of the track just using all of these parameters in a different way. Actually a good idea. Yeah, what else? Oh, I didn't mention this thing. There's one thing. There's this envelope LFO number 5. And actually, it's just a short little snippet here, which goes quickly into the detune 2 o'clock, and then back to 0, which causes a stereo positioning of the 2 unison voices. Because I don't want to have it walking around chorusing all the time, you know. Otherwise, I would just take it up to 2 o'clock. Instead of that, I want a stable, fixed positioned, phase-wise, fixed positioned unison sound, you know. And that's exactly what you get. Whereas you do this, so you have it moving, and I don't want it moving, so it should be still and stereo. For some of you who've been at my 1-on-1 tuitions know what I'm talking about. Ah, yeah, by the way, 1-on-1 tuitions with via Zoom with like DAW, Ableton, mix mastering and sound design are still going on. So if you want to jump in for these 1-on-1 tuitions, I'm still available, and you can contact me through Facebook or Instagram. Yeah, so that's just a quick note on the side. And always welcome to watch my tutorials, my masterclasses on DNB Academy, of course. Okay, what else? So this is the main bass sound. So now comes the answering bass. That's kind of an answer. Ducks and combs, that's exactly what this is. And this sound is actually taken from the main bass sound. The only difference is this time that this thing is not 3 octaves high, it's just 1 octave plus quint. So a lot of overtones, like the primary and secondary overtone, harmonic, you could call them, are increased by this. The wavetable position is another one, as you can see here, compared to this one. It's much quieter here, a bit teethier as well, and this is a bit more gritty, a little like more in level as well, because it's a different position. Okay, same modulation, which is irrelevant because it kicks in later. No, it doesn't kick in later. And so this is an important difference. If you have an LFO envelope, or just an LFO running in off mode, it means it's synced by the song, so it takes the song position that these notes are in and actually doesn't care about the restart. See, because this is the second bar, right? So it starts right here, because 49 is the first bar, so to speak. Every odd bar is the first bar, then every even bar is the second bar. So this starts here and then goes down, and this has the effect of it, like, you know, yeah, as if it's a lot of dust, and then you take the dust away from the sound. That's how you could describe it, maybe. And I believe there's also a different waveform here. Let's just look at it. Yeah, so we have a triangle here in the main bass, and this time it is a sine wave. Alright, okay, so what else? Sub. Oh yeah, took off the filter, obviously, so there's actually no filter on anything, so the whole reverb filter is off. Kept the distortion still, right? And this results in this question answer bass thing. Just want to look if there's any. Yeah, so there is a change. As you can hear, there is various automations here, and these are, let's just see what they are. So because from here on stands still the same, slightly different. I would have to now go into right, so the positioning of the cutoff frequency with this highly complex reverb filter is slightly different, as you can see here. So it gets taken down towards this, and then the bar 65 we have a different state of the cutoff frequency, which is not really a cutoff frequency, but it is a different positioning. It shifts this thing all across the show here and causes huge differences in everything, really. So if you compare this part to this part, you know, some of the overtones, like of this beast here, get increased and some get lowered, so you have a different sound, and it's sort of a fresh ear tactic. Yeah, so you've got 8 bars this, 8 bars this, and then is this 8 bars, by the way? Yes, it is. No, 16 bars. Is it? Yeah. So from here on, different overtones. Then I'll take this frequency and shuffle it around, and it sounds like this. You know, this is exactly what this filter does. If I put the filter out, nothing happens. Sounds all the same. Well, this is something else, because I put the second octave instead of, and also took the semitones down. Doesn't make too much sense, because from 7 to -5 is the same as if you lower it for an octave. So it means I could have done left the 7 here and then just +1, so it would have been the same thing. But anyway, so what I wanted to show is, so this makes a huge overtone mess in a good way, and highly recommended to use this thing. Okay, what else is there? Okay, so this is the first part. The second part has the same answering bass, but this bass down here is different. And as you can guess already, we're going from the same sound. This time we have the major 3 plus 3 octave instead of quint. So this gives us another overtone, so to speak, in the spectrum. Instead of, this would have been what it was before. At the same time, this thing is moving. You can see there's an automation. Makes it a whole different bass sound. It's similar, but it's deriving from the original bass. But then this thing is moved. This overtone is a different one, and there's also a frequency that got increased here, as far as I remember. Yeah. So there is automation of sub level and the oscillator A level, which wasn't there before. And this is quarter delay, so it means 2 of these things are like 1/8 more or less. A bit uneven because obviously these are not totally the same, these 2 parts here. It adds this to the whole thing and makes this bass sound different enough, let's say, to justify for a second breakdown, lockdown, no, breakdown, second drop, I should say. Okay, so this is yeah, this is what's going on here. Oh, there's this third bass that I actually forgot until now. So the first part and the second is the same. No, it's this one. Okay, so this is a simple +1 and again the quint plus this and the sub, of course. This time with detuned second oscillator. It gives a little bit of a singing, leading element to it. Like it is a bit of a jump up sound, to be honest, which actually is meant to be like an end of bar bass figure which goes through the song. Main bass changing, answering bass is staying the same, and end of 8 bars. Yeah, this is end of 8 bars are staying the same in the second drop as well. Okay, so we've got this. Alright, we still have a bit of time. I hope I'm still online. Yes, I am. Very good. Alright, so I'm just going through this chat here now because I didn't do it a single time. Fan is really loud, blah blah blah, exactly. Okay. Processing the pad. Any processing on the pad. Okay, wavetables. Let's see, processing the pad is a good question actually. Processing on the pad. There's a group, and there's just a low cut, like a very slow one, and yeah, there's just the sidechaining, and that's what we get into now. It's the last thing for today. Okay, so what did I do for the sidechaining? I'm a fan of look ahead sidechaining, especially when it comes to Neuro, because I just like the little silent snippet before every drum sound, before every transient, namely kick and snare in this case, or in most cases actually. There's some people that don't include the snare or the clap into their sidechaining, but I think for most of my projects it really does make sense. What I did here, you can already see, I just copied down the whole sound, so everything as it is. So I didn't use a synth sound like a sine or something with a certain length. I could have done it and it would probably not have hurt the whole project. So now I wanted to actually have an authentic sidechaining, let's say, or at least like stay more near to the drums when it comes to the sidechain signal for the whole project. Copied down the drums. Let's just listen to them. Synths only. So it is really this. These are the same sounds. I've got to remember to put this back to send only, because we don't want to hear the sidechain signal. We could as well put it out like this, just would work the same way. Okay, what you see here is an artificial build look ahead thing that goes about 10 milliseconds long. 10 milliseconds look ahead for everything that happens sidechain wise. So in this case 10 milliseconds, so it means like in this spot here, everywhere with all the drum sounds, whenever they happen, they have a 10 milliseconds shutdown of all the other tracks. Actually, I really used it on all the tracks. I even used it on the right. So these are actually drums, but I used it on the right as well. Yeah. So what's a bit confusing here, how can you use rides when you don't want them to sidechain anything? You just want kick and snare to sidechain something, right? So what I do here is as simple as that. I take the signal, I only take a part of the signal, so that's where this sidechain EQ is enabled here. It's quite a good one, 96 decibel cascade, which is really unreal for like a sidechain, but just an EQ for sidechain. It's nothing you hear, you know, it's just for the sidechain signal. So it's very accurate, this FabFilter Pro C2. Why this region? As simple as that, because I need kick information and I need snare information for my sidechain signal. So I'm going to make sure I have a bit of the kick body and most of the snare body, and then just of course look at what's happening. Okay, so this needs to be again. It does this all the time, eh? Okay. So as you can see, there's only a little side chaining. The threshold here is quite high. It's not as low as I would go on the bass, because these are the right sounds. I just need a tiny space of 10 dB is just alright. Just a bit of interaction between kick, snare and the right sounds. Right, and the routing is as simple as can be. You just take your FabFilter, and since version 10 or 9 in Ableton, you have an input actually in the window of your plugin, which makes it easy. So just choose from the sidechain drums, SCDR in this case, sidechain drums, with the 10 milliseconds look ahead. Why did I choose the 10 milliseconds when I have a FabFilter using as much as 20 milliseconds? Well, the thing is, when I started using the FabFilter, I don't use it anymore, by the way. I just used it for this project and a couple of other ones, but because this look ahead gets compensated, which is so there's no hearable effect of the look ahead factor of the sidechaining. You know, somehow there's something in the programming that actually behaves in a way that it actually has a clean sidechaining, as clean as possible, but this look ahead is not actually making 20 milliseconds of silence before your signal. So kept it up. Have a certain hold time at about 7.2 milliseconds, can be 8, can be 6. This is quite a safe one, and the lowest possible release. This is like a brick wall limiter setting wise, so there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you want it to be an effective level reducer. It doesn't have to sound good or anything, it just makes space, and that's what it does. But for the actual effect that you can hear, I'm just going to move these 10 milliseconds again back to the original position, and you will hear that it's clear to hear now that this thing does not, I mean, you don't hear a look ahead sidechain effect. Now you hear it, and you can't hear it on the bass because it's switched off. Alright. Okay, again, because the bass was off, so it makes no sense. Okay. It's not just a little difference, it's a huge difference. It actually doesn't make that type of space. It makes space technically, and it works fine, but it does not what it should do actually. This look ahead thing is very, very important. So I put it back, and you will instantly hear that the bass is actually a little tiny gap before every happening, every event in the track actually, and I love this. I mean, just people have perfectionized this in the Neuro, and you really need this. I believe it's one of the futuristic things that you can actually literally look for in tracks nowadays. I mean, you hear it in a lot of tracks, and I like it very much. So that's why this whole drum track is actually being moved to the left timing wise. You know, you can do more, you can experiment, you can do 5 milliseconds if it's too much for you. You can do anything really, everything is allowed, you know. But I think it has to do with what our brain perceives, probably. I mean, it's something that you can't put your finger on, but you think, oh yeah, that's the effect, you know. And I came across this just from 2019 or something. I thought, like, well, there's something fishy going on with the sidechaining. Something, the signal is already off before the actual transient. And yeah, that's exactly what we need here. Okay, I think if there is not more to actually explore here, we had the drums, bass covered, mellow covered. Oh yeah, let's go to these last two tracks here. I haven't done anything. I haven't explained anything yet. So what this is pretty simple. It's just it's by the way, it's a free plugin. This DSK Choir Z. It's a very, very simplistic. It is simplistic, absolutely. You've got R's, you've got choral R's, you've got all kinds of different choir sounds that you might need. You can filter, and you have a couple of LFOs, you've got reverb and chorus. I just have these dry. I think these are dry. Yeah, the filters not, the chorus and reverbs are not on. So what this is just okay. So what's going on here? Yeah, that's why. So this is just a simple note, right? Sidechain now, again, FEP filter, last element of the track. And what I did is I mixed a little bit of a pitched up signal, you know, and this thing is being pitched up in a very, yeah, this M rhythmizer, what it does is actually, it can pitch, it can reposition and rebuffer your beats, you know. And this is just a 1 bar setting that I have, so each bar, in this case, it just keeps pitching up. Just get familiar with M rhythmizer. It's too hard to explain what's actually going on. This is what happens if you have this line. If you put it more up, it's more drastic and higher. But that's not what we need. crazy stuff. If this is a linear curve, it doesn't do the pitch up, and if it's a logarithmical curve, it actually pitches down. Let me just show you quickly. See? No, why is it switched off? See here. Exponential pitches up. Well, that's what I wanted, just like an dynamic sound that is a bit of a creepy sound in the background that actually keeps building up towards the breakdown of the track. And there's also another sound here that's just a resampled mini part of the delay part that I explained before. Before the first drop, there's just one where it gets really loud, and I just resampled a part of this, and I took it from, with a frequency shifter, from -500 to plus, or to 0 actually. Yeah, no, to +500. -500 to +500. So it gives it a bit of a riser, additional rising element. Also use this thing in the breakdown here. And last but not least, there's this riser sound coming from, I think it's operator. Yeah, it's operator. Just using, what's that? The noise. And what happens with the noise here is quite simple. I think it doesn't even get filtered. But let me see what happens here. No, so it's just a noise that increases in level, and then there is a 8 bar rate as the LFO rate for a flanger. Not phased as a mono flanger, but as a stereo noise sound, as I use the spreading on the oscillator here. So what this thing does, it just comes like very slowly, it comes in just with level, and then you have these rising flanger, and actually, yeah, it helps building towards the drops. You know, the first drop, the second drop is the same thing here. I think I didn't do anything else. No, it's the same thing. Yeah, simple volume automations, exponential ones towards the drops. That's all there is to know. And here, oh yeah, this is, so this resampled thing I've used here in the back, just the first part. So it didn't go all the way to the end, as I've already had like 32 bars for the second drop, which is more than enough. And then just getting back to the original mellow pad stuff, just the pad this time. As you can hear in this last part, is actually the sub oscillator is already switched on, and the level for the what is it? Let me see. Yeah, this one here is already fully up. So I just took this last bit here, I just put it here. Simple as that. So I wonder what's going on with this muting stuff, why there's constant mutes on ends of sounds. Well, it's as simple as this. I didn't want to have them bleed into each other, or bleed into the drop, or bleed into different settings. I just want them off at this point, without really blurring what's going on. Also, like cancelling off against each other is something I've used numerous times, but this time we don't have any addictive drums in here, so it means there's no bleeding rides or hi-hats that come out of a synth or like a drum plugin or something that needs to be silenced. But still you can see, like here, this, you know, the bass just off and then switched on just before it's actually needed again. Alright, I think we should go into the Q&A, and I hope you had enough answers as to how this whole thing went down with the track. Just let me have a quick look into what's going on. Timing is all good. Okay, so there's no new messages, which is a good thing. Okay, so that tune is so nasty. Well, that's a good thing to read. CPU fan, yeah, that's it. Okay, let's see what we have. Good practice. Got the locality of reverb, make it thing less muddy. Yeah, that's good. But you have to be careful with those things, with the low cuts as well, because if they're too steep, they might create some sine frequencies, some phase problems that lead to standing waveforms or resonances, which means, especially if you put it on bass, I mean, obviously why would you put it on a bass? A bass is a bass, you know, mud or not. But the thing is, if you put it at the resonance frequency, you will definitely make the bass or the event longer. So the worst thing you could do is probably use a low cut on a kick. I mean, not any low cut, just a normal low cut, you know. And okay, so because the sound gets longer, and especially if you're using the actual drum sounds for sidechaining, then you might run into trouble, and because it's bleeding out too long, it takes too long to actually come out of a gain reduction, and then you have a very slow and lazy gain reduction. That's why I said in the beginning that it's quite common to use little sine waves. Just put an operator on, copy the kick and snare pattern down to another channel, have it taken off the master, so of course that you don't hear it, and then just use note length, for example, to actually determine how long these notes for the sidechain signal are, so that you have the right note length for those things. And also to see if the attack and release time aren't too short, because these create spikes in the beginning and the end, and so it's all important to care about these things. But definitely low cut is good as long as it doesn't create any resonances, I can say that much. In terms of mastering, yeah, that might be something that we didn't explain yet. Okay, so what's on the master here? So there's a dynamic tube. Dynamic tube is something that actually glues bass, and I mean bass frequency, like the E note, actually the actual sign that's underneath, with the rest of the track. So that means it creates a sort of an envelope, amp envelope for the whole track. So it means it is like a super soft clipping that gets created. That's what this tube does, and C, especially C, does this. Mode C is the softest one. Actually, it's as if there's a sine wave, everything else gets slightly, like really softly distorted with the rest, but really slow, like if you play a vinyl and the bass actually makes everything rattle, you know. So it's like a degrading of the audio in a way that makes it quite vintage, I would say. And sometimes I use this on the master. It might even fuck up some of the stuff, but I like it, and it doesn't harm the track. Yeah, it adds something good, actually. Then this EQ, what is it doing? Yeah, obviously some frequency ranges are increased in their stereo field. So around the kick area, so I like to have a bit more stereo sometimes. Around the 1K, so it's like a W shape, you know, 10k, 1k, or just above 1k, and 100 hertz get increases. This is not like a go-to formula. It's just for the it's just what serves the track, actually. What keep playing the track. As you can hear, it doesn't fall apart or anything, but it's really just adds this, this tiger that wants to break out, you know, that so. And if you're still in the green phase wise, stereo phase wise, compatibility wise, I recommend it. It's not a problem. No low cuts, no high cuts here. Just do a little bit of reshaping of your stereo, a little bit of increment maybe in this case. As you can see, there's also a bit of level change, so everything is pushed up a little bit, but the side signal is pushed up more than the mid signal. What have we got here? Yeah, the EQ, I've got it on the master sometimes as well. It is a very effective EQ. It's very nice. It's really, yeah, I said brutal. It is really brutal. It really, with very little you get very much results. So if you'll switch it off. Yeah, no words. This is a great EQ. I love it. On the master, on the single tracks. So obviously put up the mids a little bit more in the end, because I felt a little bit more energy around the mids was possible. And now we get to a very delicate plugin. That's actually my absolute go-to when it comes to mixing and mastering, or like mastering in the end. There's actually not much to do. There's an amount, the parallel mix, limiter gain, and these 5 modes, more or less. And you just look at what's going on, and if you see what's going on, you don't believe your eyes. Yes, this is over 15 dBs gain reduction. And now I switch this thing off. Switch it on. How good is this? Hardly any difference, so it really doesn't touch the aesthetics of the audio, exactly what a mastering limiter should do, and just takes down like minus 15 dB. Is unbelievable. It really does what it should do. And this thing can distort, of course, if you give it too much, but it's somehow they found a way to actually fold everything that's going on in the stereo phase, distortion wise, gets folded to the mid signal more. I don't know how they do it. It was impressive how clean this sounds, and I don't recommend going down to minus 15 dBs. It's really, this is pushing it, of course, but it's unbelievable how well it still sounds without any problems. Just a little control, like the waterfall thing, if that's all right. But that's just visuals, you know. I'm not too much into visuals. It's just a control thing, just to see where I am level wise. Minus 4.8 sounds good to me. And what else? So what I just said is just beef up your soft clipping somehow. Sometimes. There's no problem if you don't do it, but it can actually help gluing the whole track together more. Reshape your stereo signal. Simple as that. EQ on the master is not very often. I just like this EQ, and it does amazing things even on the master, so that's why this is here. Normally I would probably drop it, so probably not use it. This I use sometimes. What I definitely use is a healthy amount into the Vice mastering maximizer, which does an amazing job. soft tube. Get it? Not more to say really about this. It is really that good. Okay, let me look at the through the high frequencies of a similar process, how I make them softer. Okay, so mixing process. Well, you know, the thing is, I have no golden rule. I have my ears, and I just stop when it sounds right. So if I go to the drums, for example, and someone's asking about the leveling of everything and how that actually relates in the mix. I don't look at meters too much, you know. I think this is right. If I take this down, I think it's not enough. And, very important, once you set up your master chain and re-listen to your mix, everything you do, there seems to be much less impact on what you do, because of course there's a limiter on top. There's everything goes through a certain chain. It's all about energy, the right energy at the right point. I mean, ideally kick and snare are very near together level wise. I could say that the snare giving it a little more less level than the snare, about 3 dB, but that's also something, you know, I wouldn't sign that, you know. So it's really someone wants to have just a thought of a snare drum and a super heavy kick, and that's how I work, I think. Not that I want a super tiny snare, but I just deliberately drop these rules to reposition somewhere safe, where it's safe for me, you know. So that's how I would see. So mix bus, as I EQ, headroom. Well, there's no headroom at all really. The only thing is how far can you go until it crashes down on you. If it, yeah, and you can go quite high. You have to prepare your signal well. That is a matter of fact. But as you can see here, I have no limiter on the drums, and I have no limiter on the bass. What I do use sometimes, that's maybe another good plugin here. It's a free plugin, by the way, this Nova EQ, because it is a dynamic EQ. What this thing does, dynamic EQ works, relates to the input signal, and it works like a compressor at the same time. So it is, let me see, so this is on the bass. As you can see, it reduces the gain when the input is quite high. So this is similar to like a multiband compressor or multiband limiter. So if you have it in a dynamic mode, you can use it like a compressor. So you can go higher into the signal, and then in lower parts, level wise, it will actually EQ more than in higher parts, you know. So it actually evens out an edgy signal, for example, and still gives it energy around the points that you want. So that is a tool that I would use in the mix sometimes, not all the time, because as I said, it depends on how well your signal is prepared, because this is all, it's adding to the signal or it's taking away, it's manipulating the signal, getting it somewhere it wasn't before, you know. Simple, very simple. But in this case, you know, if I switch it off, so what I wanted to achieve is like this overtone should come through really grindy. So increment here and increment in the lows, actually the mids, the overtones of the mids should be really present without causing too much hassle in the level. Very important, you know. Be present, but don't be technically difficult, you know. So that's what this is for. Like the Nova, just, yeah, I can recommend this thing. This is really, so it's a good EQ. It's really nice. Yeah, what's on the mix? Things like reverb. Sometimes there's like things like mono makers in the bass. Not enabled this time here. This is really just changing a level utility. Then EQs. Oh, there's amp. Okay, you used an amp for this. Yeah, you can beefs up the signal, makes it less clean, adds overtones, harmonics here. First and second overtone is significantly increased by this. So yeah, I wouldn't say don't be a golden rule hunter, because if you do, then you think someone takes the burden off you to actually care about what's going on in your audio signal, and that should never be the case. You should never fail at having fun in mixing your tunes or getting the right mix, you know. It's not about avoiding to work towards a good mix, you know. It's about the fun, and to say yes about the how's it done, how do I actually mix this thing. You should actually get a taste to do these things, and not just get it out of the way. What's the levels? Give me the levels, and then it hopefully fall into place. It probably doesn't, because in the end you will always refer to the right levels that you used, instead of saying this sounds all right, this sounds really good now. Of course, this is very individual, and someone might say, current value, I don't know, his snares are a bit too low or too loud or whatever, or his drums, kicks go down to 30 hertz. Why not? You know, I love this. I love 30 hertz in kicks. And yeah, this is obviously something I do something to get rid of the really uppy stuff. So 16, 18K and above, you really don't need anything there too much. I've had a whole decade of making songs that had a lot of energy in the brilliant highs, and I wouldn't say never again, but I think it's better to turn these down a little bit, especially when you keep good ears, and don't want the speakers to be stressed too much, because it's really something is unnecessary. Bring up highs where it's relevant is good. Also densen them up, it's all good, but 16K, 18K, you should think of maybe being a bit more easy. And I'm not easy at the moment. There's still people that say, wow, so much energy in the highs, good highs, but okay, so there was another question. I hope that answered your question a little bit. Headroom, clipping, distorting. Yes, the signal is clipping and distorting. It's just a matter of psychologically make it work for your ears and your brain. That's actually what this is about, I think, because loudness game is still full on, and we're still not at the point where you can say we've got a healthy mix, technically healthy mix. You know, I mean, some of these genres are actually living off their sidechaining and loudness, and something that was technical in the beginning became style, and that's the point where it really gets interesting, because one depends on the other, you know. So I would say yes to clipping and yes to distortion, and all day, you know, to get it loud, and but to get it clean at the same time. You know, and this is way too complicated to really say, okay, do this and it will be clean and loud and distorted. A lot of preparation of the signal, I would say. Not too many peaks, enough presence in all the regions of your frequency spectrum, and last but not least, maybe a very good limiter in the end. Yes, I would say that could be vital, because good limiters are actually taking care of the signal technically and still don't touch it sonically. So that's fundamental frequencies. I don't care really. I really do not. I just think that sounds right. But let's see what this is. So, having heard this, no, let's see, where's our kick sound? Yeah. You know, if you listen to a drum and bass song and you think, oh, this kick sounds really nice, then you have to try and reproduce it, you know. And as I said in the beginning, this is a typical sound where you don't have the bass frequency. It's not important really, or it doesn't play a major role in this song, because it's working with energy and the reverb after it actually making it a rounder kick, like more like a real drum kick. It's not a real drum kick and it doesn't sound like it, but it's more steered towards a real drum sound that is actually not that much based on a bass frequency. I obviously chose C, what is that, C1? Yeah. I don't know. You could look at frequencies. That would make more sense. And then I would say the chest part just around the 100, 120, and then the belly part around the 50, 60, and there you go. But it's obviously steered towards a lot of sub energy as well, and that depends on what your amp envelope does. So you can't have it go down too quickly because it's a developing sound. It pitches from above to low, so it means you have to give it a bit of space to reach 50 hertz or 40 hertz. But at the same time, if it's too long, you need to gate it. You just need to cut it off at some point again. So low impact, chest impact, low rollout, short drum sound, sidechain, you know, what I told you guys before. So that is important, but to relate to certain bass frequencies, of course, if there is a bass frequency in a kick drum, I would say, all right, then have it tuned to your bass. Right? Have it at the same frequency is probably not a smart idea. Have it at a quint. That could probably work. Have it an octave higher. Works pretty well. And still have them sidechained smartly against each other, you know, so that both are coming through. I mean, there's still people that actually fight with sounds not coming through. That's unbelievable. But yeah, that's what happens if you don't care about all this stuff. So let me read through some of the sections flow, but the sections flow better. Do you have any tips or tricks to make transitions better? I would say use risers, use some build-ups. What's also a good thing is to have a dB jump, like a level jump, about 2 dBs. I think is a good thing to do actually. So you have the intro, then you rise up to something, and then you jump 2 dBs up, just like that. And you think, wow, that's, you know, that increases the impact of a drop without actually. No one would think, oh, someone turned it up. You know, it's just that 2 dBs that make it actually psychologically stronger. You know, it just, your brain picks it up and you think, I don't know what it is, but it's really, there's a huge impact, and there's a huge fan noise as well at the moment. Sorry guys. Okay, let's go on. High frequency noises are processed soft. I've got a few things that I've explained in the bass about making things silky and giving it a lot of highs and still not have it peak or destroy your mixes. So if you use a multiband compressor like this, 2-staged multiband compressor, 2-staged because it has 2 level ranges. You can compress or decompress, while you can compress or decompress in the upper frequency threshold region. See, it's 2-phased for every band. 3 band, 2 phases. regions, let's say. And if you use the lower region, you bring it up, everything under a certain level gets brought up to that point. Very short release time, very important if you want to squeeze out all these high frequencies, the high frequency material that doesn't seem to be there at first. You could also go compress here on the lower region, and the upper region compress towards that level and then compress towards a level from above it. So you nail the signal at a certain level here without having it peak, without having it going down too much, and make it really steady this way, and really bring up the level without it having to peak or anything. So that's what I showed you, right? So you have this, and now then you have all the, everything that happens in the synth gets actually enhanced, and that goes for ride sounds as well, drum sounds. Compress the highs in some way and just get more highs information without pushing it. Not just using an EQ, or you use what I've shown you before, the dynamic EQ, which is like it comes a high peak, gets compressed, and if there is a lower level region, just brings it up. So it works similarly well, but it's softer than compressors. Compressors are very, especially this free band thing is a monster. Okay, what else? Fundamental frequencies. What's the idea? Oh, what was the idea of this track? What inspired it? Boredom, I think. Looking at the window, rain. Thought oh, let's make a line out of this, and then repeat this, but have something else on top. And okay, and then I thought, okay, I can do it like I did it before as well, which worked well. Have these pad chord sequences, and give this a little story, just build 8 bars, do 16 bars, then add something else, and just add something else, and then at a certain point it builds itself. If it's the right material, the right idea, it actually builds itself, and that's one of those self-builders. It's something that, a few things that I've tried out and then changed them up again, and then, okay, that needs an answer, that bass, okay, answer, I had a song where I used similar drums, so I tuned this to this idea, and then, it got into the song, and it was just a matter of just having the first and the second part, having the second drop slightly different, obviously, create some more interesting features, that sort of thing. Okay, CV, at what point do you have, you're done mixing? Comes into deciding done mixing. Oh, it's relatively quick, because when the idea is right, it's just a matter of minutes, or it's really minutes. That I think, okay, that should be higher, that should go down. Okay, overtones here. And then it's a matter of executing these things, just execution, assessment, execution. That's how it works normally. Yeah, that's what I would say. I have a silly question, but does the bass need to hit on the one as the kick does in your first? Well, it doesn't. It doesn't hit on the one. I'm just playing a step kick. Yeah, well, it is not on the one. The answer is on the one, but this one is it's on the 2nd 8th actually. And yes, if you have that playing with delay is actually something that is achieved, can be achieved through sidechaining, like in this case. So you have the automatic delay of an event because you're using sidechaining. Of course, someone could get the idea and think like, well, just play the kick and then have the bass hang after, it's like being pulled by the beat, and this is actually what in hip-hop happens very much. They pull the beat, they pull the bass, they pull the leads, the melodies, they pull even the voices. They get pulled by the beat, and that's something that's achieved via the harsh sidechaining that's done, at least in most neurofunk things. That's the case, and you think that's all a bit delayed, but it's not delayed. It's actually on the one. I'd rather have it on the one, to be honest, because for the simple fact that who should decide how much delay there should be? I'd rather do this in the sidechaining itself, and then just apply it to all the sidechain tracks, the same thing, Okay, I think we're almost at the end. Or are we at the end? No. Okay, well. So fast producing, mixing. The thing is about the fast mixing and producing is if you give it too much time and too much thinking, then you probably won't get exactly there, or at least if this process is too long, then you take the pressure out, that's on you to actually have a fast realization of the project, and at the same time you change the idea 1,000 times, and it's not the initial spark, the initial mystery is never there, it's just gone. Roll this up. Okay, all right. Okay, so guys, this is it for now. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and as I said, visit DNB Academy for my other courses. There's a little bit more detail on the drum synthesis especially, and I think techniques of how to actually layer stuff if you have to, and all that stuff. So I hope you had a lot of fun, and okay, see you later at